Hello, and welcome to the Tuning In podcast. I'm Dana Evans, your inner voice and emotional support coach. In this podcast, we explore the deep wisdom that lives in our bodies, emotions, and inner voice. Together, we'll shed the layers that no longer serve us, creating space to tap into the flow of life and experience true ease. So, are you ready to join me? Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Tuning In podcast. Today, we are going to talk about health while feeling sick. I am coming to you fresh off of a vacation. John and I took a vacation together, and we went to two of our favorite places in Colorado. One is Buena Vista. If we weren't living in Santa Fe, we would definitely want to be living in Buena Vista. And then we actually met our good friends in Winter Park, Colorado, at a place called Devil's Thumb Ranch. That is where we got married 6 years ago. And we had not been back to Devil's Thumb at all since we were married. So this was a big deal. It was so special. It was not just us, though. We met our friends and their kids. So it was definitely a different trip, but it was very enjoyable. But I returned home and was a little bit under the weather. I got a cold, and honestly, I think this is maybe my first cold of the year. I definitely have not been sick much this year, which is amazing, but this cold snuck up on me. To be fair, I put myself in a position that I was more susceptible. We had the travel days. We were staying up later than normal. I wasn't getting as much sleep. I was drinking more and activitying way more than normal. It doesn't take much sometimes for your system to be shocked. It happens. But I thought this would be a perfect time to talk about what I do when I'm feeling sick. And I took a poll on Instagram to check if anyone wanted to hear about this. There was a lot of interest, like 25 people voted. We're going to talk about how I support my system and learn from what's arising when I'm feeling under the weather. I took notes for this episode. I don't always take notes, but I really sat down yesterday while I was in my sick bed, snuggling with Mia. I was taking note of, okay, what are my natural tendencies? What are the protocols that I reach for when I'm not feeling well or at the precipice of getting sick? Even with the notes, I can feel myself being like, oh gosh, the second I finish recording, I'm going to think of other things I do or other things that I wanted to include. So I want to be clear that this is by no means a comprehensive guide to wellness. I have a tendency, I can go really deep like we did with the spring cleaning podcast and that accompanying guide. I can do that in the health world. But these days, I don't do the most. In the past, I was more vigilant about how I handled things when I wasn't getting sick. And honestly, I think that came from this fear of getting sick. When I felt it coming on, I would go into overdrive to stop the sickness. I have really shifted my perspective on being sick, which you will hear about in this episode. Because of that, I'm not as crazy about protecting myself from getting sick. I'm like, all right, it's here. What can I do to take care of myself without being in fear mode? And I think it's really cool to see that shift. Just know this is not a comprehensive guide. I'm sure there are a ton of health experts out there who would tell you all the reasons why these things matter. They'd probably give you a whole different guide to taking care of yourself when you're sick. But I do find that these simple protocols and practices do help me when I'm not feeling well, both to mitigate the symptoms, speed up my recovery, and most importantly, make me feel truly restored and recovered when I'm on the other side of it. That's what I think about now. When I'm not feeling well, I'm like, okay, what message is my body sending me? What can I do so that when I'm over the cold, over the flu, over whatever it is, that I actually feel better? There's nothing worse than having a cold and you just can't get over it. Have you ever been in that where and you're never really feeling better. For me, this is going to be a funny analogy, but in the past, if I drank too much one night, the next day I would wake up hungover. I hated that, which is why I don't do it anymore. Like, I just don't go there. But I would wake up hungover. I would take care of myself on the hangover day. And then the next day was always so great because you had the perspective of, I know how terrible I did feel. And because I took care of myself, look how great I feel now that the hangover is gone. There was this stark difference between the day of the hangover and the day after the hangover. And I was like, I'm a new human. I slept well. I had no alcohol. I feel clear. And that's how I think about it when I'm feeling a little bit sick is how can I take care of myself so on the other side of this, I actually feel better? Listen, I know that getting sick can feel like a total bummer. And over the years, I've been able to reframe it and use it for my health. I've worked with a lot of clients on this when we're in conversation, when we're in Vox or in sessions. A lot of times, if they're not feeling well, they can freak out a little bit. This emotional distress that comes when you're getting sick can actually cause more problems, right? It's like, why did this happen? What did I do? Who got me sick? And we start blaming, oh my gosh, this person got me sick. Now I can't do X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to be productive and I'm going to get behind. All of that can cause a lot of emotional charges. They can rise to the surface when you don't feel well because suddenly you're not able to operate at the capacity that you're used to. So many of us, myself included, are very defined by our output, by what we're doing. When we get knocked down by a cold or a sickness, it can be very destabilizing to our self-concept. Remember, getting sick is a message from your body. Usually it's a request to slow down. More likely than not, that request has happened time and time again and it's been ignored. And so now it's having to speak louder and you get sick. Okay, it's time to slow down. And the other thing is when you're sick, it is not a time to assess your life, assess your decisions, make major decisions, because things are not going to look as good when you're in this state. I knew I was going to talk about this today on the podcast. As I was falling asleep last night, I freaked out. We have this flagstone being installed today in our backyard. This is a huge investment, a huge commitment. I've done this all on my own. And I literally started crying and I said to John, I'm afraid I've made a mistake. I'm afraid I'm getting ripped off. I should have done this. What if I hate it? We should cancel the whole thing. It's going to cost too much. I was panicking. This morning, I woke up and I was like, okay, I can trust my past self that I set us up properly for this installation. So just remember, when you're in this state, there's a very good chance things are going to look grim. So let's watch out for that. And remember, you don't need to believe everything that you think in these moments because having that extra stress is not going to help your recovery. That being said, if you're feeling emotional charges, especially around productivity and your self-worth, it actually could be a useful time to process those charges and process those emotions that are coming up. It's a good time because you have space, you have downtime, and so things will bubble up to the surface when you have space. And so you can actually sit and process them. Earlier in the day, I was feeling some other doubts and stresses coming up, and I just laid there and I watched how they were showing up in my system. And I was like, okay, what part of me is saying this? What part of me is needing to be heard? And that can be a really beautiful practice. So, I am not a doctor. I do have a health coaching certification, but I am not a doctor and I am not working with any prescriptive practices here. I'm not saying this is what you have to do when you're sick. I'm saying these are the practices and protocols that I use that tend to help me. Always check in with your body first and check in with what is going to be best and highest for you in that moment, including if you're feeling this need to call a doctor. 99% of the time, I don't go to a doctor or take a test for any sort of cold. I'm just going to take care of myself. Where all of this comes from for me is I am a generally healthy person, as in I'm not getting sick a lot. I don't have any chronic diseases. I'm not suffering constantly with my body. I don't have any of these things that could be a constant exhaustion and sickness. This is coming from that perspective. It is not to diminish you if you're sick or to write off what is going on with your system or if you have a weakened immune system. I understand that you might see things differently, and that's okay as well. This is coming from my own perspective, my own experience. And I do believe that in general, a lot of these perspectives can be supportive at any stage of our wellness and health journey. Let's get into it. In general, my perspective on sickness is this. If you are getting sick, it means there's an imbalance in your system. I've always liked to think of the word like disease as dis-ease, like something is out of balance. That's a really easy way to look at it. When we're getting a cold or getting a flu, when we're extra susceptible to something, we are out of balance. Because of that core perspective on sickness, I don't actually see sickness as a bad thing. I see sickness as an indicator that something is out of balance, that my system is needing to clear and let go of things that are no longer serving it, that I'm ready for some sort of upgrade. It has to make space, whether it's energetic space, rest, stomach clear outs, sinus clear outs, or chest or head clear outs. Something's needing to move out of my body. I also believe that my body has more wisdom than my mind. It is more connected and attuned than my mind. And it is regularly processing things that are below my level of conscious awareness, which means if I am sick, something is happening that my body is processing and I am not aware of it. And all the energy is being directed inward to clear up the shit that is no longer needed. That is how I see what is happening in my body. I feel exhausted. I'm having these symptoms. It's because my body is doing what it knows how to do, which is handle things that are not meant to be in my system. A natural, healthy body can do that on its own. That's why I'm not usually turning to medications, because I want my body to do what my body does. I will take some supplements to support what my body is naturally doing. I don't want to take things that are going to suppress what my body is trying to do, like a cough suppressant. Again, there are times when I had such horrible coughs that I cracked a rib and I ended up having to take a cough syrup with codeine, which was effective. But if I don't have to, I'm not going to go to those options first, okay? 1, I don't see sickness as a bad thing for all of those reasons. 2, this is a big one. I do not blame others for getting me sick. I think it's really common to point to someone or something that got you sick. I could have been like, I was gone away and because I was around kids and kids carry things, the kids got me sick. Maybe. Maybe they did. Maybe it was one of the other people I ran into that was carrying something. I don't know. I don't think someone else actually got me sick. I don't like doing that. It feels disempowering. I don't like pointing fingers and blaming people. I don't like to make other people feel like they're dangerous to me. They aren't. I feel very strongly about this. I do not like playing the blame game around sickness. I can also look at this past weekend of I was busier than normal, right? I pushed my body more than I normally would. I wasn't sleeping as much. I was drinking more alcohol. I wasn't eating the same foods. I wasn't taking any sort of supplements. Basically, I had set my system up to be more vulnerable to catching something. I don't think it was someone else's fault. I think my system was vulnerable, or my system needed this so it could process and remove some extra stuff that's been sitting in there that needs to go away before the next season. I don't blame others. I don't blame myself. Instead, I start taking better care of myself so I can heal and restore. I go back to my original belief, which is this is an imbalance of my system that my body knows how to clear up. There is nothing wrong. There is no problem. Next up, I don't push through when I'm sick as much as possible. Time after time, I find the absolute best way to get over something is rest, rest, rest. To me, when we get a simple cold or flu, it is just a sign that your body needs rest and it hasn't been getting it. In hindsight, you may see how many times your body has asked you to rest and you ignored it, thus forcing your body to speak louder and force you into a sickness. Or this can also show up as an injury, right? You might twist your ankle or get a little injury. A lot of times it's showing up in those small ways, and it's just that nudge from your body. I'm asking for rest and you're not giving it to me, so I'm going to force it onto you. Again, this is a belief of mine. I have zero evidence for this, just through my own experience and witnessing that of friends and family and clients. With these smaller types of experiences, I see it happen over and over again. The more we're willing to lean in and listen to our body and be more attuned in the day-to-day life, the less we're going to have these big problems show up. So again, as much as possible, I like to listen to my body when I start to feel that first sign of sickness, not once I'm already down and out, but when I first start to feel it, that's when I'm like, oh, something's out of balance. I need more rest. Fully rest and doing the bare minimum. Look, I spent the weekend with my friends and their kids, and they are 2 and 4. I don't think rest is much of an option for these parents when they get sick, and I feel for them. I feel for them so hard. I don't have kids. I don't have to also go into an office that only gives me 5 sick days a year. Know that this obviously has to be push and pull with your own schedule and availability. There is a part here of the rest where you might have this thought of, I can't take a sick day because this and that. And that's when I'm going to say, how can you do the bare minimum? If you're a mom and you're home with your little kids, guess what? Kids might get a movie day and they get to snuggle up and watch movies so mom can rest and you don't do all the activities. Or if you work a job and you have this feeling like you're not allowed to take time off, you can't take a sick day, you're going to look weak. You get to challenge that belief and say, okay, is it better for me to keep pushing through, thus extending the sickness because I don't get to rest and restore, or for me to take that 1 or 2 days off, fully allow myself to rest, and then actually be able to bounce back with more energy quicker? Like I said at the beginning, the less we give ourselves space and time to rest when we're not feeling well, the longer it lingers. It can be really hard to kick something because your body needs to direct all that energy inward to clean up the mess. It's what your body's designed to do. If we don't give it space and support to do, it's going to linger. Okay. I guess this leads into being sick is not a loss of productivity. I've heard this a lot from clients too. They're like, I had all these things planned. I have to do this. I have to get this done. And now I'm not going to be productive. Not only does that challenge your view of self, it is going to cause you to want to push through when you're not ready. It's definitely going to cause you to start to look to other people and blame them for getting you sick. See how these are all stacking on top of each other. If I'm not productive, if I can't get things done because I'm sick, then this is a problem. But only seeing it through that lens limits what you can learn from this sickness. When you're not feeling well, it is a good time to just be. How often do you get to do that? Lay in bed and rest. Probably not often. You're probably really busy. You're probably really productive. You're probably thinking about the next thing you got to do. You're probably listening to this podcast while you're multitasking. Productivity is not the only purpose of life. I am speaking to myself. Productivity is not the only purpose of this life. A lot of our wisdom, a lot of our insights actually come from space and nothingness. They don't come from doing. So another thing that happens when you're sick is you're forced into this slower pace. And the slower pace is what allows new things to grow and to click into place. It also allows us to release and let go of what we no longer need. It is not a problem. It is not bad. My whole life isn't going to be ruined because I missed 2 days of working. There's actually a lot that can come out of this. I love to lay in bed and watch movies and read a book. And sometimes when I don't feel well, I'm too tired to even do those things and just lie in bed. I curl up in my guest room. That's where I am right now, recording this podcast. The blinds are closed, it's dark, it's cozy, and I just lay there and sense into my body what's coming through. What am I needing from this right now? What am I needing to see? What am I needing to understand? What clarity is coming through? I have a couple books that are all about messages from the body. So I'll look up symptoms to get an emotional and energetic perspective on that symptom. If you're a client of mine, you know I always do this for my clients because I think it's really interesting. Again, this isn't just medical. We're so quick. We're like, if I'm sick, it means I'm broken. And if I'm broken, I need to be fixed. And if I need to be fixed, I have to go to the doctor. And if I go to the doctor, they're going to prescribe me something, right? We get in this really crazy loop around being sick. And of course, sometimes that is what we need. But a lot of times for these more minor infractions in our system, what we need is rest and introspection and to actually ask the body what it is asking for. Ask your inner voice, what are you trying to show me right now? Look, we haven't even done any protocol stuff. I'm just talking about my perspectives on sickness. This is just how I see things, and that helps me move through a cold faster and easier. As we're talking into this next step of, yes, we want to shift these beliefs, and I'm going to give you a bunch of practices that you can do and that I do. But depending on how you feel, you might do all of these practices, you might do one of them. So don't make this like this to-do list when you're sick. This is not a sick to-do list, but it is practices that you can embody to support yourself in the way that you need. Sometimes a lot of them will feel good. Sometimes you just need one or two. Don't feel like, oh my God, Deanna's doing all these things and she's on it. At any given time, if I'm not feeling well, I will take on some of these. I just wanted to create a bigger list for you to play with. Let's start with supplements. Again, not a doctor, not prescribing. These are things I like. But things I do when I'm starting to get that first hint of not feeling well. I take zinc with quercetin. I use Organic Olivia's product. I definitely up my vitamin D. I use Casadrina's vitamin D. I also like the Athletic Greens vitamin D. I sometimes use vitamin C. I have a buffered vitamin C powder that I use. Please don't use the cheap shit when it comes to supplements. I don't know what to say. The quality matters. When we're looking to support our systems, don't buy those weird emergency vitamin C packets. The quality of that, it's not giving you the same thing in your system. And mostly it just exits our system because we can't even absorb that. A buffered vitamin C is going to be a lot easier. Oh my gosh, my favorite tincture and correlating tea is called Microbiome Guard from Organic Olivia. I love that tincture. I also take it more often in the winter and I drink that tea regularly because it is so supportive. Next up, my favorite ever is oil of oregano. First sign, you take a drop of that. You can get pills, but I like to take a drop of that under my tongue. It's strong. It will fill your entire mouth with this flavor. And then chug water. You need to have food grade oil of oregano or just take the pills. That you only want to take for 5 to 7 days max at a time. It's a very strong antiviral, very potent. By Zach Bush, I use the nose spray. Amazing. Propolis throat spray. I use that because I was having that soreness of the throat. Propolis is like a bee byproduct. My friend and naturopath swears by olive leaf. I don't have that, but I've heard that pairing that with oil of oregano is like this super duper support system. Definitely electrolytes. I tend to get really dehydrated when I'm not well. And then some regular warm water with lemon, apple cider vinegar, and local raw honey as your regular beverage. Sipping that this morning. Okay, so those are my supplements. Again, there are a million supplements you could take when you're not feeling well. These are what I take. I already have them in my cabinet. And whenever I travel, I always bring my zinc pills and my oil of oregano. In fact, when I woke up with a sore throat on Monday morning, I immediately did my oil of oregano. practices that I love to do. One thing I just want to say is I don't do lymph drainage when I'm not well. For me, your lymph nodes are already doing a lot of work to clear. So I'm not doing specific drainage practices because I don't want to overload my system. So I would say steer away from that until you're on the other side. Then you really want to do the lymph to get any other residual stuff out of your system. On the other hand, I like, if possible, you can do a little bouncing, a little rocking, a little gentle walking if that feels available to you, just to keep things moving in your body. I know it can be really easy to get stuck in bed in the dark room. That can create a lot of stagnant energy, so little gentle movements can be really supportive. Oh my gosh, I have the best Slav for my chest, and it's like an immune support blend. It has like coconut oil, and I just love rubbing that on my chest, and it's warming and helps break up anything on my chest. The most important thing ever is a balm for my nose. So I've been blowing my nose like crazy, and my poor little nose gets so raw. I have this pinyon pine balm. It's like a pinyon resin and beeswax. It's amazing. It smells amazing. And so every night I do my last nose blow and then I rub that all around the outside of my nose and above my lip and then in my nostrils just to help repair that overnight. And then if it gets bad during the day, I try to do it then as well. I love the neti pot. There's mixed reviews about neti pots. Just be sure to boil your water. Please boil your water to get anything bacteria-wise dead. And then you put that warm water, once it's cooled, warm water into your neti pot with your salt, whatever the instructions are. I love that, especially toward the end. Again, I don't like it in the midst of all my snottiness, but I like it toward the end to clear out any residual. I love gargling with salt water. Again, keeping the mouth biome really clean is really helpful when you're not well because you don't want to keep adding to that. So I gargle with salt water, and I make the craziest mouthwash that I found from some naturopath on Instagram, this like DIY mouthwash. I'm obsessed with it. It has oil of oregano, of course. It has cloves. It has cinnamon. It has comfrey root. It has salt in it. It is this potent freaking mouthwash, but it's like Listerine is potent and toxic. This is potent and not toxic, and I'm freaking obsessed with it. I rinse and gargle with that once or twice a day. I do my tongue scraping in the morning. If you're not feeling well, look at your tongue. I guarantee you there's a white or some color coat on it, and it's so disgusting. We do not want to swallow that. Brushing your tongue is not the same. That kind of rubs it in. We want to scrape that entire layer off. This feels so much better to get rid of that. I love to keep my feet warm. I personally like to rub some oil on my feet at night, put socks on, but mostly trying to keep my feet and my whole body warm so I'm not feeling like exposed to big temperature changes. This is a Chinese medicine thing. Fresh air. So simple, right? But again, we can get stuck in our dark rooms, in our sick clouds. So open the windows. Spritz a spray. I like to diffuse some essential oils. Stand outside in the sun. Sit outside in a rocking chair. Give yourself a little fresh air. Again, depending on how mobile you are, how tired you feel, let yourself get some sunshine, some fresh air, and even some gentle, short walking can be really supportive. Okay, these are other little things that I like to do. I like to change my clothes out when I'm not feeling well. Like 2 Januaries ago, I was so sick. And it was like wake up, get up, drink some water, crawl back into bed, fall asleep, wake up, have a snack, fall asleep, wake up, have a snack, go to sleep in the same clothes, right? It was so easy to be stuck and I didn't change my clothes. I'm like, no, I can't do that anymore. So putting on fresh, cozy clothes every day. Just these little things. They're telling our bodies we're not falling apart. We can change our clothes. I wash my face every day when I'm not feeling well, especially if I'm stuck in bed. Like at the very minimum, I want to clean my face, put on moisturizer. You're scraping your tongue, you're washing your face, you're brushing your teeth, you're using your mouthwash, you're covering your feet in socks. We're showing our body how we're taking care of ourselves even when we feel terrible. And then I like to keep my sick space clean. It can really build up tissues on the floor and a million cups and glasses and like crumbs on the bed, and it can start to feel really gross, which to me makes me feel gross. Again, opening the windows, throwing away the tissues. If you need someone to come remove the cups, wipe down the surfaces, I like to keep that clean. And I do, again, gentle somatic movement if possible, especially before bed. Just some rocking, swaying, little bit of tapping to support your system. And always after I'm on the other side, feeling much better, feeling restored, feeling refreshed, feeling clear and clean, I clear and clean my space, literally wash the sheets, wipe down the surfaces, not with antibacterial frickin' spray. I use Branch Basics. I put some amazing smelling essential oils in it and just spray down, wipe down, vacuum, clean up the bathroom, do my laundry. I like to do a full clean up of my space and myself. I like to do a full service shower when I'm on the other end of a sickness, and just telling your system and your body and your eyes, I'm clean, I'm reset, I'm restored, I'm refreshed. And it's not just internally, but I'm also expressing that externally. Love it. Okay. Whew. I'm dizzy from talking. Finally, we'll just do a quick little talk about food. I have such my sick food that I freaking love. First of all, immediate switch is I have 32 ounces of either I'll make a tea. This morning I had this rooibos chai, which had ginger, cinnamon, rooibos, so there's no caffeine in there. I put that tea bag in, filled it up with 32 ounces of hot water, let that steep, and added raw honey and lemon juice and a little bit of salt. And then I drink that whole freaking thing before I had anything else. Or I love to simmer, if I have more energy, simmer a pot with star anise, a few cloves, a cinnamon stick, and even some slices of ginger or turmeric, a little black pepper. Simmer that for 20, 30 minutes, and then pour that into the jar and drink that with the honey and lemon. Oh my God, it's so good. You can even put some lemon peel, some orange peel in there. Those are so good for us. Simmering that same batch every morning, that will really help moving things out of your system. Drinking as much tea as you can. Tea is really nice, especially if you have some really good teas. I use a lot of organic Olivia's teas as well. They have trace minerals in them. So you're not just drinking big jars of empty water that's washing you out. It's add the electrolytes, have the tea, add the honey and lemon, add the pinch of salt, drink more fluids to support your system. But we don't want to demineralize our system. We don't want to wash everything out of our system. So think supportive things. And then, of course, bone broth. And if not bone broth, I love making mineral broth, depending on how you feel. Every time I'm sick, no matter how sick, I always make myself soup. Sometimes I do a big soup. I made a really nice ground beef, kale, cabbage soup the other night that I've been eating for the past couple days. But simple foods that are easy. So my easiest go-to food whenever I don't feel well. Now I eat a lot more protein, so I do like to make some ground beef, which is really grounding. So cook that up with some seasoning. Then, so simple, bone broth with turmeric and ginger powder, salt, coconut milk, and lime. Make that broth. Cook up a pot of rice. Add a bunch of butter to that rice. And then I scoop in the rice, the beef, and then I pour the broth on top. It is a no-brainer recipe. It is simple, it is nourishing, it is hydrating, it is grounding. It is satisfying, but it is also not too taxing on your system. You could do with or without the ground beef. If you don't use ground beef, I love adding some kidney beans. That is such an amazing recipe. You can also add some shredded cooked kale or some cilantro. You can enhance it in any way that you want. But that baseline is going to get you through, because I like to think of when I get a cold, when I'm not feeling well, as a forced cleanse. I'm minimizing or removing caffeine. I'm removing alcohol. I'm removing most stimulants and just having simple, repeatable, gentle meals and lots of hydration. Because that's what I would do on a cleanse when I want to support my body and detoxifying. And that's what I'm going to do when I'm not feeling well. So I think about my food as this is supporting the healing process. This is facilitating it. And I even think about how the food is supporting me when I take it. So I thank my food. I thank the honey for helping me let go. I have gratitude for the soup in supporting my body exactly the way it needs. I thank my water. I really genuinely do this. I pause, take a moment, and have the gratitude for what that is to support me. Oh, the other thing I like to have is sourdough, because I do like to have some of that crunch when you're eating soup all the time and drinking tea. You lose the crunch. I love to have sourdough with butter and honey or some cinnamon sugar or a little avocado on it. With that, I have a little simple shopping list that if you text this episode, and that's a link in the bottom of the show notes, if you want the shopping list, text the episode and say shopping list and I will send it to you. I think that is all. So thank you, as always, for listening. I hope you found this supportive. If nothing else, that I've given you another perspective on sickness. What if it wasn't this, oh God, defense, I'm afraid, what went wrong, blame others? What if we could really shift the energy around this to what am I needing? How can I rest? What message is my body giving me? And how can I take the best care of myself so that I come out stronger on the other side? So with that, thank you for listening. I will see you next week when I am back in full vibrant health. Thank you for joining me in another episode of the Tuning In podcast. If you loved this episode, please rate and review it or share it with a friend. If you want to go deeper into the realm of emotions and learn the language of your body, check out my audio course, Emotions Decoded, at alignful.com/audio. As always, you can follow along with my journey on Instagram at Dana_Evans. See you next week.